started this when he was 44, and it's basically sort of the video diary of a 44-year-old man who goes, I still have dreams. I still want to achieve my dream of being a racing car driver. Let's try it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's quite relevant to a lot of people, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who still want to do stuff, but they're
having a midlife crisis.
No, but they go,
Midlife
I
adventure.
can't. I'm too old. Yeah.
Well, I have actually. I mean, in all seriousness, I've got an issue with the term midlife crisis.
I never said midlife crisis.
No, I'm not. I'm just. That's why I brought it up. I'm the person with the issue. I think it's an odd time. I mean, would you say you've had a midlife crisis? Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
how would you describe what happened
We're
to you
sat
during
in
your...
it.
I don't think it was. Somebody said to me it should be called a midlife adventure.
Oh,
I like
So
that.
whether you buy a black quad bike and go racing around Surbiton, or I don't know, the dalliances of insecure blokes in their 40s.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, see, that's my issue with it. That is actually my issue with it. Is I think that a midlife crisis really boils down to a man at a certain age coming to terms with his own death and his mortality. So they do something a little bit wayward because they think, well, I haven't got long left. But it's quite a serious.
or it's a reaction to becoming invisible as a man,
exactly.
Approaching middle age, and suddenly you're.
Do you think it only affects men?
Well, no,
I was
think
going to ask you about
that's
this a little bit later on.
I think it's only. I think because it's men, it's viewed as a midlife crisis, and it's actually viewed as quite a sort of jokey. Look at that idiot with his bike and his girlfriend. Look at that idiot. Where it's actually quite a dark and serious time in a man's life. And in this era where we're talking about mental health and positive mental health, and that seems to contradict. A midlife crisis is not necessarily just the thing to poke fun at, but I think for women it's different. It would be treated differently if they said, I'm struggling with not being seen, I'm struggling with my own mortality, I'm struggling with all these issues. It's not called a midlife crisis then. Then you're suffering, and validly so. I mean, it's a real thing, and
I don't know if it's...
But for men, I think it's the other way around. I think it's the case that they go,
I think there's a big
idiot.
difference between having issues with confidence and doing things,
Yeah.
and getting old.
Yeah.
Getting old is a terrible thing, and it's very that's very different, I think, for men than women, and I don't really know what the lady take is on that.
Well, I can only talk up to 38 years. So what I have sort of witnessed and learned is that women do have midlife adventures / crises. We know somebody actually who, she's not going to listen to this, but I'm not going to name her. But the point is that she suddenly has started sort of flying off to foreign countries because she's suddenly got boyfriends in foreign countries that are 20 years her junior, and she's sending money to them, and she's wearing sort of big wonder bras, and she's getting her knockers out, and she's wearing her hair in bunches and stuff, and suddenly it's all makeup, and it's like it's a massive shift. So sort of when she's picking up her grandchildren from nursery, they're all like, why is Nanny dressing like that, and why is she going away next week and stuff. So it does affect, I think it affects both genders. I totally get what you're saying about the man having the midlife crisis and people laughing at them, because you do have to be in a privileged position as well to be able to afford a race car that signifies you're having a midlife crisis. And so it's quite...
Sure, but just because I've used race cars as an example doesn't mean that people have a midlife crisis within their means. You don't.
True.
You don't have to have a midlife crisis. You have to go, I can't have one. I can't afford the bike.
No, that's very true. And in fact, because you're having that of breakdown, you'll just go for it anyway.
You could save up for it. You could have a hog fund, couldn't you?
Yeah.
A hog fund.
Hog fund.
I like that.
On the card.
Yeah, I know that. If your dad or your parents or your mum, because I mentioned this to Neil actually, Neil Cole, and I said that my dad never gave me any kind of hints or warning about what it's like to grow older and what was going to start happening to me.
Just kept telling you the youth was wasted on the young.
Yeah,
you're wasting your time.
But then I said, well, why wouldn't he give me some kind of pointers or some warnings or something like that? And Neil said, well, probably because he didn't want to piss on your chips.
Yeah.
When you're young and
Yeah.
enthusiastic and bright and sparky.
My mum tells me all the time about how I'm going to get older and how it's horrible and how it's terrible.
Babe, let's face it, with your mum, you've got the soggiest chips.
I really do. My chips have never been crisp. But that's okay. Yeah, no, she tells me constantly how it's horrible getting old and how different things happen to you and how, as a woman, you do become invisible because obviously you can feel self-conscious if somebody sort of if somebody can say you look nice and you can go thank you and that's all great, but equally somebody can sort of be a bit leery and a bit sexually aggressive and you can be like, oh god, no, now I feel in danger. But something that I know a lot of women have discussed is the fact that there suddenly becomes a point where nothing happens and you literally become invisible and you suddenly go, oh, so I don't get anything anymore. I don't get you look nice and I don't get the leery guy. I'm invisible to everybody. And you can also become invisible to sort of your children who only seem to notice when their food is missing or you become not a feature, you become the thing that makes everything run, and then suddenly they go. So I know it does affect women in different ways.
Is that when you get your knockers out and get a boyfriend in Gambia?
That's exactly how it happens.
I think so. Yeah, but you see there you can sort of laugh at her the same way that people were sort of, but she is clearly going through something, and these are big flags that she is waving, big flags. But to sort of get past the flags, so you can sort of talk to her, is the same difficulty as getting past a guy who,
So what is a unicycle? It's just the way I like to travel now. Leave me alone. YOLO. See you later.
Yeah. How do you say to, and that's the worst part as well with the pissing and the chips. Like, how do you say to someone, I know you look like you're having fun, but I think you're crying inside. Like, what kind of asshole says that to someone?
Mate, a hoverboard's a hoverboard, but she's only 19.
Oh, right, yeah. I suppose there are certain things you could say.
Yeah, I mean, you can put people back on the straight and narrow. That's not an issue.
But yeah,
It's a funny thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got to be a good friend. If you're not friends enough with someone, you can't just.
yeah. You do have to have that relationship of trust to be able to say, oh, do you think this has gone off the rails a bit? Like, I'm just saying, we've just painted your entire house black. I mean, it's cool that you are a goth now at 62. I'm just saying, is it your thing now? You've heard this new group called Marilyn Manson. Okay, they've been around for a while.